Hey everyone, it's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery. We'll wait for just a couple of minutes here and do a little housekeeping. It sounds like we've got a little bit of a thunderstorm rolling in here in Kansas City, and so that'll be interesting. The first spring thunderstorm that I've been in, and so that'll be nice. And I enjoy thunderstorms. If they get a little too violent, not so much. But it's nice to see the lightning and hear the rolls of thunder. I don't want to be out walking in it, but yeah, it's nice to watch it rain, and it's nice. It's interesting because in just a couple of days here, we've had some nice warmer weather, and the trees are budding, and there's not a lot of green yet, but the little buds are shooting out on the maple trees, and so it's spring is here. If not, it's just around the corner. So anyway, why don't we get going today? It's Monday, March 15th, and it's time for Monday Mastery live at 5. I'm here live in Kansas City. And I hope you all had a great week last week, and some of you I know celebrated the upcoming St. Patrick's Day. And in Kansas City, they have an event called the Snake Parade, and down at Lake of the Ozarks, they have a big St. Patrick's Day parade, the St. Patrick's Day all-day event. It's a big party down there. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the weekend and had some fun. I enjoyed some good quality time with my best friend down in Lake Ozark, and we just hung out and did some man things, and had a little bit of therapy. Hey, Flory, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. Today, I wanted to talk about, over the last 4 weeks or so, I've talked about some of the key components of building strong relationships. And one of the things that I typically don't spend a lot of time talking about, and was prompted to share this information today, based on a conversation I had with my lady friend Sherry, and she was talking about the pain that she had gone through in her divorce, and it got me to thinking, well, we all go through some certain a certain level of pain, and some more than others. And I know I struggled, even though I was the one asking for the divorce. I struggled for a couple of years after my divorce, saying, did I do everything possible to make this marriage work? Because when I went into my marriage, I didn't take my vows lightly. I was there for a lifetime, because I came from a household of divorce. I'm a product of divorce, and it's the one thing I can say, I ended up spending twice as much time with my ex as my parents spent together. So it was an improvement, but in the long run, my marriage failed. And I can look back, and that's part of where my experience comes from, is all of these things that I have gone through, that I've experienced, and I'm sharing that with you. And what my there's so many things racing through my head right now. Over the weekend, I came to the decision that over the next 5 years, I want to impact 1 million people, to try to keep them from either getting divorced or making the wrong decision and getting into the wrong marriage, getting into the wrong relationships. If I can help you guys make better choices up front, we're going to avoid a lot of the pain that comes from making the wrong choices. Whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, and it's not. And when I say physical pain, it's not necessarily from physical abuse. it comes from the stress that comes from all the traumatic emotions that we go through when we go through a divorce. I recognize that the divorce or the poor relationships have an impact not only on us, not only on the two that are in the relationship, but our kids. And it's there's just a tremendous impact emotionally and physically on the kids. And there can be an emotional financial impact involved with getting divorced or breaking up a long-term relationship. And when we start taking all of these components into account, it becomes even more important to make better decisions up front and to avoid the relationships that aren't right for us. I had a message from a woman over the weekend, and she said that she was making comment on my book. She said, I've read all kinds of books on dating and relationships and done everything that they said that they told me to do, and yet my last relationship still failed. And she went into a deeper part of the story, and it turns out that he was a very superficial guy. He was looking at certain physical features that she had or didn't have, and she said she ended up living with him anyway, and he still walked out on her, even though she had been forthright up front that said, she's not as well endowed as he would like and what he's used to. And it just struck me at how much pain we so many times inflict on ourselves. It's the decisions that we make to enter into a relationship, and even when we know it's not the right one, and or going back to a relationship when we know it's not the right relationship. As I said so many times, the reason you break up the second, third, fourth, 12th time with someone is going to be usually the same reason you broke up the first time. And we have to start learning. We have to start recognizing what our boundaries are, what our must-haves are, and what our deal breakers are. And we need to it make your must-have and your deal breaker list make it so much easier to set those boundaries and say, no, I'm not crossing this line. If you're dating somebody or you meet somebody and they're overweight and sitting on the couch all the time, yet you're active and want somebody to be active with you, it should be an obvious no-go right there that it's not a great match. Hey, Rod, thanks for joining in. Rod says, yeah, self-inflicted trauma has been a pattern I worked hard to break. Awesome. And Rod, you're not the only one. I've done it. I can't. I several years ago after my divorce, I was in a relationship, and some of the self-inflicted trauma I put myself through was, in one relationship, I went back. We broke up 3 times. And I went back twice, so we were together 3 times, and finally the last breakup stuck. But it's and we do it for a variety of reasons, and sometimes it's a comfort reason, sometimes it's a self-esteem issue, sometimes it's a loneliness issue where we're lonely for that. We're lonely because there's nobody in our life or nobody with us. And one of the things that I found since then is that you have to put yourself in a place where you're comfortable with your own company. When you're finally comfortable with your own company, it makes life so much easier. you don't feel the need or that strong desire to have someone in your life. You get to choose to have someone in your life when the right one comes along. And divorce, and if you're widowed, it happens also. But right now, I'm just focusing on divorce. Uh, can be traumatic on so many levels. It can wreak financial havoc over everybody involved. Sometimes one party is ends up far better off than the other, and other times, both parties suffer. Both parties have to start over from zero, or sometimes less than zero. Hey, Sheila, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. So it's there's just so many levels of pain and suffering that we all go through it, but we have to learn to move past that. We can't carry that forward, otherwise that pain, that frustration, that anger, that hurt is going to damage any potential relationship that we try to get into in the future. And that's why it's so important. Going back, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks when we talked about becoming emotionally healthy, that is such an incredible first step. And sometimes we need help making that first step. But too often, what happens is we don't seek help. We don't seek counseling. We don't seek therapy. We don't try to do some self-help changes or recognize the changes that we need to make. We tend to get stuck and wallow in those past relationships. Now, I want to make it crystal clear. I'm looking up something here that my lady friend Sherry sent me this morning, because we were talking about what I was going to share with you all today. And she shared with me that something that she found and copied from Intentionally Fabulous. And I'm going to read this to y'all real quick. It says, the physical stress of divorce is very real and takes its toll physically. We uh, we cannot disconnect the spirit, mind, and body, and all three are affected by emotional trauma. Despite my good health, and this was somebody else writing this. Despite my good health going into the divorce, here are the things I personally experienced: panic attacks, insomnia, depression, grinding teeth, clenching fists and tense muscles, holding my breath and breathing shallow, backache, stiff neck, hair falling out, brain fog, chronic crying. And what she says here is like really ugly crying and sobbing. And all these things were previously foreign to her, and a direct result from the deep grief following her divorce. Uh, so going through a divorce, so I want to make it crystal clear, this is all normal. This is all normal when we leave a marriage or a long-term relationship. And uh, it goes on to say that it's important we know we are not crazy. Physical manifestations are a part of the emotional and spiritual breakup, and it is real. If I had to do things again, I would do it faster and less painful. I can't change the past. And I guess what she's referring to here is that uh, don't drag things out. The divorce, move through the divorce as quickly as possible. Try not to hang on to all of the negative memories and the future building that you dreamed of, because everything is changing. And it's so important to recognize that life changes, and now the plans you had for the future, they're gone. And it's not fun, but it's someplace that we all move through when we get a divorce. And the sooner you can recognize that that your future plans need to change. You need to adjust. Um, you need to change course. Uh, that reminds me of a great analogy. You know, we have to continue to make adjustments through our lives. No matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we have to continually make adjustments because what we plan for today may not be there tomorrow. You know, a perfect example is if an airline takes off or an airliner takes off from Los Angeles and is flying to New York. And for those of you that understand flying, there's constantly a course correction because you have winds aloft that are blowing the plane in one direction or another. And being off just 1 degree, one little degree out of 360 over that several thousand miles makes the difference between landing in New York or landing in Washington, D.C. Just 1 degree off if it's not corrected along the way. And we have to do the same thing um, when we're dealing with our life issues. Um, I love this one, Sheila. Thank you. Just like changing the sails on a sailboat. Absolutely. You have to adjust the sails to the wind because the wind will change. Life will change, and you have to adjust your sails to that changing wind. That's a great analogy, Sheila. I appreciate that. I love that, especially since I'm a sailor. and but it's so true. It's just we have to continually make adjustments. Our plans change. Things that we wanted to accomplish, we didn't, or maybe some great things happened, you know, that we didn't plan on. So we're making adjustments in another direction. So life is never a guarantee. There's never a constant. But what we have to do is pay attention to the signs that life gives us, or to the obstacles that life throws in our way. Sometimes we're going to overcome those obstacles. Sometimes we're not. You know, but we have to figure out if we can't go over it, how do we get around it or go through it? So it's just a never-ending process. And the more we learn how to do that, the more we learn how to overcome obstacles, it moves us along our path much more easily, much more quickly, and we don't dwell, we don't get stuck in a or mired uh, uh, in our past, in our anguish, in our negative thoughts. You know, and when a few weeks ago we talked about the negative mindset and how important it is to feed your mind with good things. You know, when you're struggling with a life issue, find a good book to work on that issue, or find some outside help, a therapist, a counselor, a coach, to help you work through those things. Because the sooner you can work through them, the sooner you can move forward with your life and live a much more enjoyable, healthy life. So, and if you guys have experiences that you want to share, please do. Um, you know, it's like the lady that I shared, talking about dating somebody that that was obviously very shallow in nature. And we have to pay attention to those signs. We make the decision to date. Nobody can force themselves into your life. You have to let them in. And when you let the wrong person in, that's when you open yourself up to a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering, whether it's emotional or physical or financial. This is all part of that process. And part of what I'm trying to share and help you all develop is that ability to recognize toxic or poor, or and it may be an okay relationship, it may even be okay, but it's not fulfilling, it's not the relationship you want. And part of what I want to help you do is to recognize those relationships and say, yeah, this is nice, but it's not the right one. um, Rod says, when you let the wrong person in and try to keep them, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Rod. It's letting the wrong person in, and generally for the wrong reasons. It's a lot of times I find that those types of relationships are one-sided. You may think they're your soulmate, or they may uh, or an extraordinary relationship. Rod says, and that's where I failed. And Rod, you're not alone. I've been there too, and I'm sure most everybody else has. There are certain characteristics that just were very attractive and very welcoming, and you get drawn into that kind of relationship, and pretty soon you're waking up one day after the infatuation and raging hormones wear off, that it's not the relationship that you were hoping for. It's not what you need in your life. And again, it creates anxiety. Just the thought of having to break up after spending even 6 months with someone. I was at an event last week, and the gal said that she had been dating somebody for 6 weeks, and she knew it wasn't the right relationship, and he was just kind of uh, rolling with the flow, and she had tried to walk away from that relationship, but he talked her back into it. And this is only after 6 weeks, and she was struggling to let go of that relationship, in spite of the fact that she was starting to date other people. She just didn't want to let go. And we one of the biggest things that I see in so many relationships is that one of the two doesn't let go. They 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 don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And with all due respect, the only one that has any control over their feelings is them, unless they give you the power to control their feelings, which most people don't. Whenever I ask someone who controls your feelings, the answer is usually I do. I control my feelings. You control your feelings. If they choose to get upset or be sad, that's their choice. You can't control what somebody else thinks and feels. Sheila says it's hard to let them go when the sex is hot. Sheila, I know, but honey, that's why it's so important to leave the sex out as long as possible. Because when the sex is hot, it does cause us to stop thinking and developing the relationship, because we know that we're going to have great sex tonight. And I agree, it's hard to set aside. But when you do learn to put that aside and take time, you know, develop a 3 month rule, a 6 month rule, or a wait until you're married rule. Um, uh, hey, Mike, thanks for joining in. Let me find my cursor here. Mike says Sheila has an excellent point. Absolutely, I totally agree. And and wait, if you wait till marriage, then you really get to know somebody. And if it's not right, and you discover that somewhere down the road, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, um, that this is not an extraordinary relationship, it's far easier to break it off when when there's been no physical intimacy, because the emotional attachment is not quite as deep. We all start developing a really deep emotional attachment when there's sex involved. Rod says, I wasn't in a secure attachment style when I made those choices. I was preoccupied with finding a relationship, not being a partner in a great relationship. I also had an unrealistically positive view of the relationship. I liked the Disney version, but it's not real. Oh, that's an awesome point, Rod. And that's one of the things that so many of us fall into is we've had poor role models growing up in so many cases, but we didn't know it. If you look back at your family, you can probably see your parents were very dysfunctional, or your family was very dysfunctional. I know mine was crazy dysfunctional. Um, and it wasn't physically abusive, but it was verbally abusive. And when I was working for my dad, he was a baker by trade, and he had a bakery, and I was in my early teens, and he just in the shop, he just ripped me a new one in front of everyone. And one of the girls that worked up front, that waited on customers, came back to me shortly after that event, and she says, I don't know how you deal with that. That's crazy. And I said, that's the way he is. And that's all I knew. I was defending him. And it wasn't until I was over 50 years old that I finally stepped back and said, whoa, this is just wrong. Um, this is not what a healthy relationship should look like, even a father-son relationship. So, we have to at times step back and say, is this healthy? Is this not healthy? And it's it's a chore, because none of us wants to take a look inside. None of us wants to judge our family. But the reality is there can be a lot of baggage that comes from our family. And because we grew up that way, we look at relationships and life through that lens or through that filter, and that's what looks normal. And it's taken me nearly 40 years to recognize how dysfunctional my family was. Um, and don't misunderstand me, I still love them, but we were dysfunctional. We still are. and there's only so much that each one of us can do individually to make that work, or to make it right. And sometimes you have to push those dysfunctional people out of your life, even if they're family, or at least keep them at an arm's distance, because they can continue to screw up your life for the rest of your life. So you have to be very conscious about the things and people that you're letting in. It's so important to keep your thoughts captive, so to speak, and keep out the wrong thoughts. And again, the whole idea is to try to avoid making these mistakes in the future. And none of us is perfect. I won't claim to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to do things and that may even go against what I tell you here, only because I'm human. I slip and fall, but then I have to pick myself up and think, okay, Rick, what would you have told somebody else about this situation? And then I say, yeah, okay, Rick, you screwed up. So we all have to be able to do that. We have to be able to take a look and see what things are holding us back. What kinds of issues are we dealing with? Are they issues that from somebody hurting us in our past that we refuse to let go of? Are we refusing to forgive someone? And forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about me. And when I learned that lesson, it made life so much easier. Somebody can wound you, somebody can hurt you. Um, and until you learn to let go, I've got a dear friend that she refuses to let go of certain issues in her past. As much as it's hurting her physically and emotionally, she just refuses to let go. And as long as she carries that with her, it's going to continue to impact her, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and maybe even financially, because it creates such a negative attitude or a negative aura around her that people just don't want to let her in. So, if you guys have experiences, or if you've got tips or tricks or techniques that you've used to help you move past situations, drop them in the comment box and share them with others, because you know I don't have all of the answers. I wish I did. I wish I had that magic wand to wave over everybody and say, "Yep, you're all fixed. It's all good. Life will be magical and unicorns and rainbows and butterflies for the rest of your life." That's not the way it works. But if you've got tips to share or techniques to share, drop those in the box, and or even share experiences of how you overcame some issues, dealing with divorce or being widowed, or and how that's impacted you. It's it. Today I'm focusing mostly on being divorced, but losing a spouse, having a spouse die on you, that can leave a lot of emotional and financial trauma also. Most people that I've talked to have raved about their spouses, but there are some that deep down inside they're glad they're gone, because they were so miserable during life, and that's sad. But that was a choice that they made somewhere early on, and the whole idea is to take control of our choices, and not just uh, make these decisions on a whim or what we're feeling in our heart. We have to think through these things. We have to we have to think through and date intentionally. And I'm hoping this is making sense. Um, I feel like I'm up on my soapbox, kind of ranting and raving here, but the whole idea uh, is to make better choices. And if you're making better choices up front, if you're taking your time in making decisions about who you're going to date, who you're not, who's right for you, who's not. And just because somebody isn't right for you, it doesn't make them a bad person, and it doesn't make you a bad person um, for admitting that they're not the right one. And they, if they come back and attack you and say, "Well, you don't know what you're missing. You're just making a bad decision." Then right then and there that you've just dodged a bullet, because the relationship was all about them and all about what they want. It had nothing to do with you. And so you have to keep all these things in mind, and it's a process. This is all a process, and the whole idea of the last 4 or 5 weeks is to give you a good thumbnail sketch of how this process works, and to keep you focused, or get you focused on the bigger picture, and how it impacts you each step of the way. Each step that you take has an impact, on the next step. You start with a foundation, you build the next step, and next and next and next, And pretty soon the whole process, while it doesn't always become easy, it becomes simple. It just, let's make dating simple. And it can be so much simpler when you have in your head what it is you want, what it is you're looking for, and recognizing that if he or she doesn't meet what you're looking for, they're not a bad person. They're just not the right one. And like I've said so many times in the past 6 or 8 months, this is a needle in a haystack relationship that you're looking for. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being picky. And I know you'll have friends that say, "Oh, you're just way too picky." And in my heart of hearts, I don't believe you can be too picky. It's uh, unless you're saying something like you want somebody that's visited the moon, or has visited Mars. That might be a little unrealistic. Other than that, I think everything else is in play. Uh, so but you have to recognize what it is you want in a relationship. This is about you. And when you find that right person, you're going to fit everything that they want in their relationship. Are there going to be compromises on certain things? Absolutely. There may be compromises on hobbies. There might be compromises on pets. There might be compromises on some of the basic things, some of the very simple things. But when it comes down to your must-have list, that should be carved in stone, so to speak. You don't want to settle there. I mean, unless something changes on your list, which very few things do. Although, like I've shared with you a couple of times, there's a couple of things now that, because of age, when I first wrote my list 10 years ago, there were some things on there that were important to me. Earning a decent income, and I had no specific number. It was just a general idea that she would be able to take care of herself financially and not be responsible on me, and not lay the responsibility for her welfare or her lifestyle on my plate. And I'm not trying, and by all means, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, guys, that you shouldn't be supportive of your woman. Absolutely the opposite. Uh, but the two of you should be working together in whatever it is that you want to accomplish. And if it's only one of you doing all the heavy lifting, yeah, that takes a lot of fun out of it too. And so let me take a drink here. So what are some of your thoughts? I see some of you bouncing in and out a little bit, and some of you are pretty consistent in here. What are some of your thoughts? Where have you been? What are some of the hurdles in your relationships or in breaking up that you've come across? Hey, Gina, thanks for joining in. Gina says, hey, Rick, compromise is okay, but don't compromise on your must-haves. Absolutely right. The must-haves, like I said, should be carved in stone. You can, and the other thing that I say you can never compromise are your values. That was one of the things that I struggled with my ex, because we had a couple of values that were very different from each other. And that created some conflict from time to time. So you have to make sure that you share similar morals and values. And again, like Gina says, never compromise on your must-haves. The minute you do, you're settling. And the whole idea is to not settle, because there are so many extraordinary people out there. There's so many extraordinary relationships to be had. It's just a matter of finding the right ones. And let's see. Sheila says, I'm just being single. I'm too picky. You can never be too picky. Will take a while to find my man. Absolutely, it will take time. You know, it's taken me almost 11 years, and so it does take time. And and the longer your list, the the longer it will take, the longer your list of must-haves, I should say, the longer it will take. But that's okay. It's okay to want what you want in a relationship. And if if the next guy doesn't meet it, well, guess what? There's another guy that'll be right behind him to, or woman to take her place and step up and say, you know, let's try this. Let's see if we're a fit. And a lot of times it's a lot of one and done dates. I can't tell you how many one and dones I've had. It is it's a fairly significant list. But the only way, and the reason it's a significant list, because I was actively, for the most part, actively seeking the right partner, the right mate. And if you just have a date here and a date there, it's going to be frustrating because you aren't actively pursuing or seeking your extraordinary or soulmate relationship. It takes time, it takes effort. It's not easy, but the process is simple. It's understanding what you want. It's understanding the four cornerstones that you have to have. Oh, I had another conversation that brings up another great squirrel moment here. I was at an event last week, and I was sharing the four cornerstones of great relationships, and that's being able to develop an intellectual, a spiritual, emotional, and physical connection. And the woman sitting next to me said, "That's impossible. You can't have all that stuff in a relationship." And I just looked at her and said, "Okay, no, you can't, but you all can, because you understand, and you have to believe that you can have all of those things." When you look at people around you that that have a great relationship, and I'm guessing that you all know one or two couples that do have an extraordinary relationship. Sit down and talk to them. Ask them if they have an intellectual connection. Ask them if they have a spiritual connection. Ask them about their emotional connection and their physical connection. And you don't have to ask them about sex. Is it hot sex? So, but ask them, are they attracted to each other? And odds are that, and especially the longer they've been together, the more attracted they are to each other. There's just something about that, about spending time with each other, that you just naturally become more attractive, assuming it's the right partner. If it's the wrong partner and everything they do drives you nuts, you don't even want to see their face in the morning. So, and that's why it's so important to make sure you choose correctly up front. Do the hard work, and this is the hard work. The dating is the hard work. It's the price we pay for extraordinary on the back end. And when you do find your extraordinary, when you do find your soulmate, the relationship will be so much stronger, because you're communicating better. You're communicating like you've never communicated before. You've got a partner that's your cheerleader, and you're going to be theirs. There's just so many things on the upside that so outweigh the time and the effort and the occasional broken hearts. But as the saying goes, when you finally find your soulmate, you'll know why none of these other relationships ever worked out. There's a reason. God has a reason. God has someone out there for each and every one of you. And it may be that the timing is not correct right now. He may be working on you to fix some things in you. He may be working on your soulmate to get some things fixed in him or her. So there is someone, and you have to put in the effort to find that person. I so often I hear, well, God will bring the right one to me at the right time. Yeah, but you have to put in your share of the effort. You have to get off the couch and get out and be seen and connecting with people. And I know, don't jump all over me because of COVID. It makes it a little more difficult, but there are ways. You can still connect with people through church, through work, through online dating. And I know some of you are going to say, "Oh, I can't stand online dating." Well, it's a tool. I don't like jackhammers, but or hearing a jackhammer, but you use it just because it's a tool and it helps you get the job done. Rod says, yes, I'm doing the hard work up front. I don't think you get to skip the hard work. It's either done before you commit or in mourning the loss. That's my current theory anyway. That's exactly right. And let me give you an example. Let me use a sports example. How many of you watch the Olympics or any sport? Watching the Kansas City Chiefs, for those of you in the Kansas City area, everybody loves to watch the quarterback Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, because they just make things happen out on the field. And what most people don't sit and think about is how much time each of the players has invested in getting himself to that point or herself to that point, depending on what sport you're looking at. There's so much hard work that goes in on the front end that nobody ever sees. It's the hard work that you do on making you the best person that you can be. It's the hard work that you put in going out and doing the one and done dates and doing the getting out and searching and being proactive in your dating life and not letting the world pass by you or just sitting there in an inactive role. It's something that you have to put effort into. If you don't put effort in, you're not going to get much out. I mean, you might be lucky to be walking down the street one day and run into somebody and discover they're your soulmate. Odds are, it probably ain't happening. Maybe you find them in the grocery store aisle just by accident. Yeah, but probably not happening. It could, but you still have to be able to strike up a conversation. You still have to introduce yourself. You still have to create a connection. Unless you do that, nothing happens. You can walk past somebody in the grocery store and say, "Oh man, she's a good looking. I'd love to strike up a conversation with her," and yet you keep walking. Well, how are you going to meet somebody if you just keep walking? You have to put yourself out there. And if you're shy, I understand, but sometimes you just have to expand that comfort zone and say, "Hi, can you help me find this? I don't shop here often," or something like that. You strike up a conversation. Learn how to strike up a conversation with anyone at any time. You have to put some effort into it. And I've been thinking about this over the past couple of weeks. I've had somebody that challenged me to that they wanted my service for free, and they would tout my services if I could find the right person for them. Well, number one, I'm not a matchmaker. And the more I think about it, the less I believe in matchmakers, because I believe it's the slothful way out. You know, if you're not putting in some effort, uh, if you're not putting some effort in up front, what makes you think you're going to put in any effort to maintain a relationship? If you've got to have somebody come and do the picking and choosing for you, and just, I mean, it's like kind of like an a la carte menu. Well, you didn't do any of the cooking. You didn't. You're just there to enjoy the results of somebody else's work. You know, so I hope that's making sense. That's just my analogy right now. That you have to put in the effort. Sheila says, "Yeah, last weekend my couch was my date. Nothing happened. Didn't meet anybody." Well, Sheila, and I know you had to work, but we had our meetup event. Hopefully, you can make it next month and get out and be social. And there are other meetups and that's another great way, is getting out and doing some meetup stuff. I'm hearing thunder, some pretty good claps of thunder. If I should disappear in the next 10 minutes from your screen, it's probably because the power goes out. So anyway, and that's another option, is getting out and being part of a social group and interacting when you can. Again, COVID rules. You have to figure out what's appropriate in your area and what's not. But there are some groups that are still very active, and it's a great way to connect, have conversations. And just because you don't meet somebody today doesn't mean you won't meet someone tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So anyway, the I guess, circling back to the very beginning of the conversation, you have to acknowledge the pain that you felt or that you are feeling from a past relationship. Work through that. And how you work through that's a little different for everyone. And the more I've done it, the easier it gets. It's like any other muscle. It's you dealing with you when you deal with emotions. You always have to acknowledge the emotion, but recognize where it's coming from. What was it that triggered the emotion? If it was a breakup, well, recognize that you broke up and understand the reason for the breakup. The discomfort comes from that initial being alone. Learn to fill your time with something else, and not necessarily on the couch, because the couch and Haagen-Dazs can be very seductive. And so get out, move, get out and be active. If you're struggling from a negative or a crappy attitude, get out and take a walk. Go for a run, jump up and down, do some jumping jacks, like we used to do as kids. Just get yourself moving, stand up straight, smile, and you would be surprised what kind of changes you can make in yourself just by doing simple little things like that. Getting a little exercise, getting moving, just moving. And you could Google some stand in place exercises that help get your blood moving or get your blood flowing. Again, you can do jumping jacks. There's some little running in place stuff that you can do, and it all makes a huge difference, because when you get your blood flowing, it starts to release endorphins, and that helps change your whole attitude. It starts changing your outlook, your disposition for the day. So give those things a try, and make sure that you're moving past your past. And it's because it's so important to to enter a new relationship with a good attitude. You know, it's so important to let go of some of the other stuff, but again, acknowledge it, and you know, but move past it. You know, I know a lot of you have gone through financial issues. You know, you may not be where you want to be right now, but turn around and look at where you've been. Look at what you came through. I do that from time to time, and I'm amazed and saying, "Holy cow! Have things changed for my life, even in the last 5 or 6 years?" I look back and say, "Wow, you know, I'm really blessed." So, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with you guys and helping you move forward. Tell me your stories. You know, send me the things. You know, drop me a line and tell me what's going on. And if you got questions, I'll see what I can do to answer them for you, or point you in the right direction. The whole idea is I want to impact 1 million people in in the next 5 years. I want to decrease the divorce rate so that we don't have to go through the pain and the financial suffering that we've all gone through. You know, almost without exception, we've all gone through some emotional, physical, or financial pain, or maybe maybe all three. The whole idea is I want, you know, that's my goal. That's I believe that's what God's put me here for, is to help you and 1 million others not make the mistakes that we've made in the past. Help move forward and start making better choices, better decisions, so that you can find your soulmate, so that we all have our soulmates in our lives. I don't know when, but I know they're there. Hey, Geneva, uh, thanks for checking in. It says me too. Even within a year. Oh, absolutely. Just things. You know, especially you know, just the first year after a divorce, it can be really traumatic. And then you move past it and you start looking back and you start feeling better. You start finding yourself and peeling back the layers that you've buried for forever, however many years you were in a relationship. And it really can be amazing. So I'm proud of all you guys. Thanks for your comments, and thanks for your stories, and continue to share those with me, so that as we move forward, you know, the share the stories and observations that you make um, will help someone else down the road. You know, it's we're all here to help each other. Sue says, "Hey Sue, thanks for joining in. Thank you for this info. It helped me to realize that this current situation is not working for me. I appreciate your help." Sue, I'm sorry it's not working for you. You're very welcome. You know, it's and the reality is, not every relationship you get into is going to work. Not everyone is going to be a good fit for you. You know, I'll tell a quick story and then we'll wrap up here. Um, Probably about 9 years ago, I'm scrolling through Match and looking at profiles and thinking, yeah, I'd be a good catch for any one of these women. And as I'm scrolling, well, wait, if none of these women are a good match for me, what makes me think I'd be a good match for any of them, or for all of them? I know I'm a good match for someone, but it was just an epiphany. It was an attitude shift, that I recognized that I can't be the right person for everyone, just like you can't be the right person for everyone, but you are the right person for someone. And Geneva says, I'm at the point that I forgive and it feels amazing. Yes, it does. And again, like I said earlier, forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about releasing the hostility, the anger, the emotions, whatever the negative emotions, whatever is holding you back. and it makes a huge difference. How do I help my kiddos? Uh, the it's rough. Yeah, and that's why it's. I think one of the best things that you can do is keep open lines of communication with your kids when they're not feeling when they're with you know when they're not feeling connected. You try to connect with them when they're down, when they're upset. You just have them talk about what's bothering them, and they may not be able to share. They're not. You have to recognize that kids are not adults. They may not know how to verbalize what's going on. You might ask questions, but ask them in a loving, gentle way. Never berate your ex. Don't let your anger or your frustrations or the problems you had with your ex create a problem for your children. Because when you start putting that pressure on them, when you said, your father's a jerk, he treated me poorly, they'll see, just in time. But never, never, never put your children in the middle of your issues with your ex. You just try to help them work through the emotions, and agree that they have emotions, and recognize those emotions. Ask them what they're feeling. And they may not, and again, you have to understand, they may not be able to tell you accurately, but help them work through it. Um, and then be the good role model for them. Be a be a premier role model by showing them how women should be treated in a relationship. If you were in an abusive relationship, verbally or physically, show them that you're not accepting that anymore. It's that's one of the best things that we can do for our kids, is set a good example. So be the role model that they need to see what a healthy relationship is like. Let them know that you've made mistakes, you've made poor decisions, uh, and that's okay. And Geneva says, "Oh, that will never happen." Their father did a surprise visit to our house, and he was unfortunately drunk. I asked him to leave politely, and asked him to please contact the kiddos tomorrow. That is an awesome way to take care of it. Geneva, it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. And I know the kids. I'm guessing your kids are younger, just looking by your picture. Never continue to maintain what you're doing. Don't they don't understand, but they're watching. I guarantee you they're watching. And I've had conversations with my daughter, who is now 37, or going to be 37 this year, and we've had conversations about her growing up, and the things that went on in our family. And I'll admit, in my early years, I was far more dysfunctional than I am now. And we've talked through those things. And one of the things that she observed several years ago is that, especially in my walk with Christ, that she watched my walk. She watched how I've changed, as I've become closer to Christ. And so always remember, the kids are watching. Whatever you do, they're watching. And it's so important to always be the good role model, or the good example. Geneva says, it broke my heart that it took us an hour to talk about what happened. But the key is, you spent that time talking with them. They're actually both teenagers. I'll take that as a compliment. Well, your picture looks very young. Rod says, Geneva, become secure in your own being so you don't fall into another unhealthy relationship. I wish I'd have taken that step while mine were young. It would have saved a lot of heartache. Absolutely, Rod. And unfortunately,
None of us can take back the past. We can only live forward, and we can only, we can deal with what's happening in the moment, and then be focused on being a better person, a better parent, a better partner as we move forward. And with that, let's wrap it up and call it a day. And thank you all, Geneva, Rod. Let's see, Sheila. Who else was in there? Mark, I think, Flory, and Gina. Thank you guys for all the great comments. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you again next week for another Monday Mastery live at 5. And if you have any questions, Sue, thank you for joining in too. And if you have any questions, shoot them to me, or ideas or thoughts that you want covered next week. Let me know, and I'm more than happy to work those in. So let's see, we got one more. Rod says, bye, gang. And Sherry, hey, Sherry, that's, oh, Sherry, I love saying your name because every time I do, Siri goes off. Geneva, you're very welcome. Anyway, I hope you all got something out of that today, and I will see you next week. Have a great and blessed week, everyone. I love you, and God bless.